Hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, became female. I always say that because the transgender community needs a sense of continuity and we have to claim our history. And so I just claimed my little piece of history, or is that her story? Anyway, my guests are, speaking of transgender, we have our wonderful transgender friends and activists, Ms. Joann Prinzivalli, whom you have seen many a time on this show. She is an attorney. She is the very first transgender district leader in the U.S. She is a trans activist who is just second to none. She's great. And our new friend, Mr. Anthony Arrien, who is a transgender man. He is also an activist. He is a filmmaker. He chairs a group in Westchester, a transgender group. And we are going to talk about, what is it we're going to talk about? What did we say before we went on?
Gender and orientation.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, people usually get all that confused.
Okay. There's gender, there's orientation.
And a lot of people make assumptions. They figure that, oh, you're a trans woman, you must like men. Or some will assume you're a trans man, you must like women. And I remember years ago, there was a fellow who was a member of the Radical Fairies and a Stonewall veteran who opined that all trans women are gay men in denial.
That was Jim
Forat.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to mention his name, but yes, that was Jim Forat.
Yes.
And I remember back when he was speaking at the celebration before the Pride March, a bunch of us got together, and when it was his turn to speak, we pointedly stood up and faced away.
Good. I do believe he's softened his position since then.
I'm sure he has. It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
Time heals many wounds.
And time wounds all heals.
Yes.
But yes. And I wrote a letter to the Gay City News at that time, basically saying that, this is divide and conquer, and we cannot have these petty divisions among our ranks because it's just counterproductive, come on.
But the assumptions that people make are that, gender and sexuality are tied together when they aren't necessarily. And a lot of times it's a matter of uncovering what's actually there. For instance, when I first started transition, I knew from the time I was 4 years old that I was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't belong with the boys, but I had to hide myself. I learned that by the time I was 6 that this was very bad for my health if I continued. My father had been a prize fighter when he was
so was mine.
Yeah. And basically he would have beaten me to death if I kept it up. So
mine would have fucked me to death.
No. But in any event, so I learned how to hide. I tried to transition when I was about 17, but I was told at that time that, oh, well, I'm sorry, we're not going to cure you of one mental disorder to give you another one, because it was before 1973. And at the time, I had understood myself as being a person who was attracted to girls. And so being a boy attracted to girls or being a girl attracted to girls, well, all of a sudden that makes me a lesbian. That would make me mentally ill.
Double whammy.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, I tried to hide myself. Finally, by the time I was 45, I couldn't do it anymore. But I still considered myself a person who was attracted to women. I also learned at that time that I was intellectually bisexual. I realized I didn't have a gag reflex at the idea of kissing a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then okay, fine, I like women, but later I met and married Trudy, who's since passed away, and now I've
your
been
second
widowed.
wife, yes.
Yes, and with that, I still identified as someone who's primarily attracted to women.
Mm-hmm.
After Trudy passed, Tony stepped in as a helper to try to keep me together in terms of trying to keep me sane.
Yes.
And things have blossomed a bit since.
In other words, you're having a romance.
Yes, and and Tony's a guy, and I realized that it's not just primarily I'm kind of really bi. It's not just intellectually, and it's a real attraction to men.
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized that back with my first marriage, in order to, my ex would say that she wasn't lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started with this, oh, I'm sorry, I can't stay married to you. I'm not lesbian. After about almost 20 years of really great lesbian sex, followed by 5 minutes of doing, the heterosexual thing, and during that time, I would be imagining I was the one being penetrated, not the one doing the penetration.
Right.
And you think about that, I didn't associate that with wanting to be with a guy,
Mm-hmm.
but I did. I realize now that evidenced the fact that I really would prefer to have been with a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning. I've just uncovered, I uncovered I got rid of the suppression, I became me, but it still took another 18 years or so for me to be able to admit to myself that I really do like guys.
Because, of course, the taboos were so very strong when you were 16,
Mm-hmm.
which would have been very late 60s, very early 70s.
That's 1970 is just right on the button.
Right, and that's even though Jim Farad, oddly enough, was marching in the streets for LGBTQ rights.
Mm-hmm.
At that same year, you weren't.
That's true.
You were a nice little teenager.
And I was a good little Catholic boy.
Yes, you once entered the priesthood, entering the priesthood.
I was in seminary for 3 years.
Yes.
Become a Roman Catholic priest.
Yes.
And so that makes me pretty much an expert on the Catholic Church sometimes, too.
I think we were separated at birth. My grandfather was a priest, and he left the priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Yeah, well, as Joann says, there's a lot of assumptions all along. I was always very masculine for a female. I had to hide my muscles. I always had really big masculine muscles, so I hid them with long shirts. But the assumption was that I was a lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, and I didn't correct anybody. I just, was being me and was just trying to blend. But the mistake is just to confuse gender and orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Gender is a spectrum, as is orientation. Some people are very female, some people are very male, some people are androgynous, in between, and some choose to call themselves non-binary because they don't identify as either being male or female. Maybe they're both, maybe they're neither, or agender, and that is a whole category now. And similarly, in the orientation spectrum, some people are heterosexual, some people are homosexual, some people are bisexual, and that takes in a whole lot of area that they could be attracted to either males or females or non-binary people.
Right, non-binary with non-binary. That must be interesting.
And in non-binary, there is a category that is gender fluid even. So there are some people that aren't necessarily one gender all the time. They feel it's in flux. So these are two separate spectra, and you can be on one and should not assume that you're anywhere on the other just because, say, a male is very feminine. Don't assume that he's gay. She might be trans. And maybe not, and you cannot assume what that orientation is.
I know a woman, and she gives a party every year, and I always saw her husband around. I had no clue he was her husband. He is so effeminate. I took it for granted that he was gay. It turns out that he's not. He's married to this woman, and they have children. And really, and you could have knocked me over with a feather. On the other hand, I know this big, gorgeous, sexy, hyper-masculine naval officer. who is so gay,
Mm-hmm.
and you would never in a million years dream that he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
Because of his gender expression.
But
That's another spectrum.
But there is such a thing as being a masculinist. In other words,
Yes.
being gay in a very non-effeminate, quite masculine way, sort of a Greek way, a Roman way, as opposed to, you know.
Bear on bear.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
But expression is yet a different spectrum. For instance, how you dress may not, you should not have any conclusions drawn about what your orientation is. Sometimes people just dress one way, and that's
Sure.
their gender expression. And it is not an accurate determinant of what their gender identity is in their head, or what they are biologically, or anything else.
In some cases, it's not even evidence of where they fit on like a butch femme spectrum.
Sure.
I know at least 2 or 3 couples where you would look at them, they look like a classic butch femme
Mm-hmm.
situation with, but yet if you get to know them, they're not at all. The one who looks femme is more butch in the way she acts.
Sure.
And the one who looks butch is more femme in the way she acts.
Excuse me, and let's not forget soccer moms throughout the world who look quite butch, but are card-carrying heterosexual.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
their gender expression, and that's all it is.
Sure. And they just say, well, I want to be comfortable, you know.
Now, I was always assumed to be a butch lesbian,
Mm-hmm.
and I never really identified as a lesbian. That was what the world was expecting of me, but it wasn't a good fit. There are a lot of trans men who lived as lesbians and were able to assimilate into lesbian culture, but I never did, because I felt it was just a lie, that I knew I was a man inside, and I wasn't going to fool some women into thinking that I'm really psychologically a woman, because
Sure.
I was not. Plus, the parts of me that a lesbian was interested in were the parts that I wanted removed. you know?
Right, sure.
So that makes it very hard to have an honest, intimate relationship. So for the most part, I was celibate.
He was saving himself for me.
There you go. I've had the odd experience of having supposedly, dare I say, titularly heterosexual women develop crushes on me and tell me as much. And I don't get that. I don't know why, you know. I mean, I would imagine because it's sort of surf and turf or something. You know?
Well, I've had friends in the bi community who've told me that, trans women are like candy. Why? Because especially if we're pre-op,
Or non-op.
or non-op, that we provide some physical similarities to both of the things that they
Sure.
like.
You know, I mean, tit for tat.
But I don't think in terms of being a toy isn't where I personally
Nor
fit.
I. And yeah, but women get quite upset when I make it clear that, I'm just really not interested, you know.
Mhm.
Like, well, how could you?
Oh, send them to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just weird, you know.
Mhm.
So, I don't.
Some of the people that come in the group, sometimes they teach you things. For instance, I always thought that asexual people never had like a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Right.
But there are such a thing as asexual people who have a romantic relationship
Oh, sure.
with someone.
Absolutely.
And that's a really nice idea.
Mhm.
So it changes how you
Well, if you don't
categorize
like to
on
go water skiing, you find other people who don't like to go water skiing. I mean, if you don't like sex, find someone else who doesn't like sex, and you're in. There you go.
Look at the relationship between Don Quixote and Dulcinea.
Yes.
There wasn't anything sexual about it at all.
No, but she, of course, had experiences
Aldonza.
elsewhere.
Yes,
Yes.
well.
But so yeah, sure. I don't know. I hate to be objectified that way and be thought of as a toy or something.
Mhm.
And it's very dehumanizing. I don't like it.
I personally, I like the idea of a relationship that involves intellectual stimulation in addition to the other kind of stimulation.
I would prefer, if I had to choose, I think you can grow much closer to someone intellectually than you can just with a commingling of bodies.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, so don't feel bad if you don't like sex. It's fine. You can be trans and you can have romantic relationships, and you don't have to do the nasty.
Or you could if you want.
Yeah, or you could and then not do it. In other words, have a period where you do it with someone and then you two take a break from doing it, and then, you know, like the old Carly Simon song, it's coming around again, you know.
Well, and there, in terms of the variety of sexual expression, yeah, some people like groups. Some people are monogamous. Some people are serially monogamous. I realized that even though I never intended, I'm kind of serially monogamous.
Well, one died, so yeah.
Yeah, the first one divorced me. Then Trudy passed away, and well, we're hoping that things may work out. But we, you know, our options are always open.
Yeah. So yeah. So. To people out there who would like to meet someone and are trans, and some man said something to me recently. He said, "I feel sorry for you." He's gay. I said, "Really? Why?" He said, "Because you're trans and that means that not a lot of people like you." And I corrected him and I said, "No, that means that both straight men and gay women like me, actually." You know, so...
And other trans people like you too.
Well, there you go. They do?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll meet you at the motel.
What?
Send them to the movies now.
I've always had a great admiration for you.
Well, thank you. And I've always had a great admiration for you. And now for you. But I mean, you know, I was surprised that a sophisticated gay man who's certainly been around would say something so inane, you know.
Sometimes people can't see beyond their own projection of their own personal point of view, their own desires, their own understanding of themselves, and they project that onto other people.
Yeah.
That's what happened in the case of Jim Forat,
whom I like.
Who's a nice, very nice man.
I agree.
Except he was
and a great historical figure who's done a great deal for the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, we're only mentioning him because of something that happened almost 20 years ago.
Yes, and he has, as I've said, softened his position since then.
But the thing is that he was projecting what it's like to be an effeminate gay man onto trans women, which works for some trans women.
And have you seen pictures of him when he was a sweet young thing? He was prettier than any of us.
Yes.
Oh, Lord. Adorable, beautiful. Like a male Marilyn, you know, just gorgeous.
There you go.
Yeah. But anyway, so now, what do you think people out there want us to say to them? In other words, we're having a nice time in our lives, thank God, knock wood. But we live in Manhattan. Oh, well, or Westchester. We live in the New York area. What do you say to people who live in, say, Macon, Georgia, or Muskogee, or, you know?
Well, the first thing is that, you know, life is a voyage of self-discovery. And very, very much that self-discovery can sometimes take you to places that are not necessarily where you thought you would be going. And the self-discovery, self-determination, self-understanding and knowledge, yes. These are things that grow as time goes on, and it's important not to suppress it. It's also important that if a person finds themselves in a situation that is bad, to find a way out.
What do you mean a situation that is bad?
Well, if
that is subjective.
If I lived if I had a job where I was being treated badly, it might be time to leave that job.
Sure. If you can, yeah.
Yes. If I'm in a community where I'm not being respected, it might be time to find a new community. if not, then find a resource nearby within the community or even outside the community. We have an internet community as well that it's possible to get to be able to find like-minded people.
Sure. And I know this because even though I'm not, those of you who know me know that I never go on Facebook or anything, but on the rare occasions when I do, courtesy of a friend, I don't even know how to use a computer. It's awful, but I find that, there are people who write from other areas who say that this show is their community. This is their, we're like a town meeting for trans folk, And that's good.
One of the things that I can't stress enough is how much it changes you when you start living your authentic self. Now, I thought I understood this intellectually, but until I actually transitioned, it was totally different, so much more meaningful. And then when you add into that hormones, for those of us who choose to go on hormones, not everybody does, hormones add another layer of discovery, because then when your inner mind is then matching with your hormonal makeup, you may discover that the orientation that you always had might not have been exactly right.
Yeah.
And in fact, they tell trans men the first year on hormones, you may feel all kinds of feelings. Wait till
like
till
a teenage boy.
Yeah, wait till
exactly.
a year before you decide what your orientation
Sure.
is, because the effect of the male hormone is extremely
You
powerful.
stand at attention for anything with a pulse.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're a 14-year-old boy, yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going through a second puberty now at age 64, 65.
Yeah, but and the
64.
hormones are great for youth. I mean, you look younger than when I met you because you've been on a continuous hormone drip for 20 years. You look 45, certainly not 65. I can't believe that. And even I am perhaps a tad older than some might think I am. But anyway, the age of Adeline, woo. No. I got fired from being Jean Harlow's stand-in for being too old. It sucked. But anyway, in 1937, that's a joke. People out there might say, you did? No, it's a joke. Anyway, so the hormones.
Powerful.
Yeah, great. I love them. I've been taking them for 43 years now.
You know what it is?
I should look better, shouldn't I? But yes.
The old saying,
great.
orientation is who you go to bed with, and gender identity is who you go to bed as.
Yeah.
The who you go to bed as, that is huge. That changes who and who you relate to, and what you find attractive.
And how you relate to them.
Yes.
In terms of, I still remember a time when I would let the ladies out the elevator first. Now I'm the one that's expected to be leaving the elevator first. At first, I didn't realize that, they're waiting for me. Now I just realize, okay, they want me to go ahead. So
it's a little offensive, though, when a young girl lets us out first because we're older women. I hate that. I hate that so much, I can't tell you.
I get seats on the subway.
I hate that!
I realize that I'm old enough and my feet are tired enough, I'll take it.
Yeah, but I've been sitting in a bus once, and this older woman looked at me expectantly, and I said, look, we're the same age. I'm sitting down, okay. We were, I'm just all spruced up with makeup and everything,
It's funny, I had kind of mentally transitioned first because I had to delay,
Right.
coming out. So I was there in an elevator, and I was, even though I was thinking of myself as a man, everybody around me sees me and I go, oh, this elevator's not going to empty until I step out. It was kind of funny. Oh yes, they're seeing that other person. They're not seeing me. So I had to changes what you have to do.
Well, inner reality versus outer reality. I mean, there are 6-foot-tall bodybuilders who yearn to be ballerinas. So, I mean, and there are lovely Southern belles in lace and frills who want to be truck drivers and be a man. Yeah. So,
And sometimes it's the kind of thing where body dysmorphia, gender dysphoria,
Sure.
these things don't necessarily match up. And you talk about the football player who wants to transition. A lot of times you have a difficulty if you're physiologically
Yes.
that different.
But as I point out to people who watch this show, there's such a thing as trans beauty. If you don't fit the Barbie doll stereotype, that's fine. You can be 7 feet tall. You can have shoulders out to the wall. You can have no hips at all. You can bulge down there in a tight dress. You're still a woman if you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't matter what you look like.
Exactly.
Things are so much better now, but when Joann and I, were young, there was really no information.
Well, we're all the same age, more or less.
Right.
So, you
About
know.
trans. Trans wasn't even coined. Transgender.
I grew up in the village, so I was very lucky that way.
That's good.
From the age of 9 until I was 14, I lived in Greenwich Village. And I would go after a school dance, St. Francis Xavier school dance. After that, I would go to 8th Street and see all the queens, the drag queens, and study them to see who was my type and could I pick up tips on how to look good, you know?
And
So there were no trans men.
That's it.
And Christine Jorgensen had transitioned in the 50s, but it was quote unquote impossible for the reverse.
They thought.
So that's very depressing.
And at the same time, speaking about Christine Jorgensen, I thought I was
No
the only person. Oh, very
So,
good.
but
I
you
thought I was the only
aren't.
person in the world like me, and then I read her autobiography.
Yes, I did too.
Yes.
And which she details all the famous people she's met in the tasteful ensembles she wore at the time. But anyway, which she often made herself. And quite well, I might add. Anyway, my guests have been transgender activists, Mr. Anthony Arrien and Ms. I keep wanting to say
Joann.
Patricia. Yeah. Joann Prinzivalli. I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. Hey, even if no one else loves you, I love you. And remember, look, you're trans, and you're whatever gender you want to be. Gender's between the ears, not the body. However you look is fine. That's trans beauty. It's fine. Love you a lot. See you next time. Bye.
And we're not beeping.
No, thank God. No, because it's really sad. 'Cause
Marvelous. This is so good for people to hear.
thank you. Oh, that's
So
my life
good.
work.
You're saving lives. I didn't want to get into suicide. Now you know what they are.
Yes.
They're,
we
they're
can't do
ridiculous. Particularly with young people under age 20.
Years and years ago, we had the suicide prevention man on from, because this friend of mine, Lucia, was starting to be a shrink, and they had a volunteer opportunity. She said, "Let's volunteer." I said, "Okay, let's." And we can't do that anymore because it works in a reverse thing. They say suicide. Yeah, I can get out of this mess, and then they do.
And they do. But
So
it's just shocking. I do a presentation, and people are always shocked at the statistics.
Yeah.
Of how
And
high
young
they are.
people.
Yes.
Young people.
Most, like 90% by age 20,
Is
attempt
it?
suicide.
And among the
Excuse me.
reasons for that is when you have family telling you you're evil, you have your church telling you you're evil, you have society telling you you're evil. After a while, I figure, well, why should I live?
Yeah.
Why should I live?
We had one just thrown out of their church a couple of weeks ago. That's why that PSA spot by a church standing on the side of love. This is some churches are being progressive. I just spoke at one last week, Church of Christ. Up in-
United
Well, the
Church of
Protestants
Christ,
are much
yeah.
cooler than we are. You have to admit.
Yeah, well, I was raised Roman Catholic, and that
Yeah,
was
me
pretty.
too.
Raised
Pretty
pretty
bad.
gray.
Yeah.
So, and we can be, and what's odd is that there are so many butch nuns and gay priests, so what's the big deal, Excuse me.
Definitely. Well, that's where
Yeah.
they've been herded to.
Yeah, but I mean, the church should be nicer to
Should, but they're
LGBTQ
in
folk.
deep denial.
Yes.
Well, the whole idea is that's where vocations come from. Even though they don't admit it, the whole idea is that you're taught that this is bad, this is bad. It's a different kind of suicide. Basically,
Yeah.
oh, well, the church is telling me I need to be celibate. If I have to be celibate anyway, I may as well become a priest or a
Right.
nun.
My grandfather was a priest in Spain, and when he quit, he actually wrote an open letter in the newspaper explaining why he quit, because that was outrageous in like 1904 in Spain. And he, in a nice way, said, because I like the girls too much, you know.
Well, 20 years ago, in the Albany diocese, a 65-year-old priest waited until it was time to retire.
I know. We all know about him.
And transitioned
God love
at
her.
retirement.
A lot of people do
Denise
that every
Brennan,
time.
I remember the name.
Is she still alive, I wonder?
I don't know, but it's 20 years ago. She'd be 85 now.
Yeah.
Be interesting to know.
I hope the hormones keep us all young and we live long. Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
justice?
Yes, but I mean, we do look younger than our ages, you know? We really do.
Then you've got people like the late Cardinal Navarrete, who basically invalidated baptisms if they didn't use male terminology for the Trinity. You could only baptize in the name of the Father, the Son,
and the Holy
Spiritus
Spirit, amen.
Sanctus,
Yeah.
which is
How
a
old are
second
you,
declension.
Joann?
Sure, I'm 61.
Wow.
About to turn
You have a
62.
lovely face. You have a beautiful face.
It's makeup, total
No,
makeup.
but your bone structure is lovely.
But
And white leading from here.
No,
Faye
you're,
Dunaway used to do it.
you're in
It's
hard
easy.
shadow. You're looking terrific.
Oh, thanks.
And Diana
See,
will-
I should just say
I'm a
thank
gaffer.
you instead.
I'm a gaffer.
Yeah.
You're in hard shadow.
Thank you.
I can see.
But I instead of saying, no, let me tell you how I do it, I should just say, thank you.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
instead I say,
You
no,
look
oh,
good,
you're
honey.
wrong.
You
No,
look
no.
good, honey.
Oh, thanks. I try. But I can't be a beauty I decided long ago when I started the show, sometimes I look really putrid. I thought, this is not a beauty contest, it's a talk show.
Mhm.
So you can't get crazy like, oh, this beautiful young girl. Well, fine. What does she have to say, you know? I'm going to look like crap next to her. It's okay, you know?
So this airs once a week.
Yes.
On what night? Thursdays.
Yes, I will call you both and let you know when. The first one is time sensitive, so that one we're rushing right through, and we're going to show it next Thursday,
Beautiful. Yeah.
10 p.m. Variety of
so it
stations.
streams live too.
Oh yeah, all over the world.
Oh, so I could watch it from Putnam. Then,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And they can watch it in Paris if they feel like it.
Cool.
Yeah, everywhere. So I'm very proud of that. You know.
Yeah, no.
So
You've probably saved a lot of lives.
I hope.
Mhm.
Well,
you
I'll
know
tell
you've saved a lot of
I'll
lives.
tell you something. The Edgar Casey people, I do shows with them sometimes. They say, we checked with the Akashic record. You're doing just what you came to do. It feels great.
Excellent.
When you're on task, yes,
Yeah.
on mission.
Well, that's what. Oh Jesus! I hope I had my microphone
No,
on
you-
while we were shooting.
No, you did.
You did. I saw you take it off.
Yeah.
Oh, good, because I see senior moments here,
I
folks.
saw you take it off. I took mine off already and I put it over the back of the chair. And Tony's just doing his.
Oh, this is really nice.
Well, I'm so glad you
It's
came
an
by.
honor.
Please come by again
It's an honor.
soon.
Wonderful
It's my
show.
honor.
Oh,
We'll come by soon.
I'm so glad that I asked Tony if he would like to do this.
Oh, I'm so glad. Oh, and we have such a paucity of F2Ms, I can't tell you.
Which
I
is
bet.
another
Yeah.
reason for Tony to be here.
Like we
Not
have
a lot of them are out. Not a lot of them are out.
Well, they don't have to be.
Yes.
I would never know.
As soon as,
Why
they,
would
as
I?
soon as they spout a little facial hair, they disappear.
Exactly.
yeah.
Or they come on the show once, and they state their lives and their thing, and they think they've done their part for the trans community. Bye bye. And they're on YouTube forever. But still, it would be nice to have a continuing conversation
Well, I
about
do talks and stuff like at the Pride
That's
Works.
great.
I did a Trans 101 thing in there, the Loft, and I'm on panels and stuff with at colleges and stuff. So I'm trying to just,
Yeah, please
just
stay in the movement.
spread the information.
Yeah, and he looks
It's all
so
a
good.
teaching
He does.
thing.
So I mean, that is going to really help the cause, you know.
Thank you.
Because there are other trans men who are not tremendously credible men. I'm sorry to say.
And a lot of them were very, very hot. I mean,
Well, they can be.
present company included on that.
Yeah. They can be, or they cannot be.
Yeah,
I interviewed Joann Martin, is that his name?
Oh, I've heard that name. Yeah. Young though.
Yeah, but just not, like he was telling a story, but he clearly didn't want to, you know?
Mhm.
Well, I feel, like you, that I feel so blessed to be myself now. I really
Yeah.
feel that I'm on this earth to teach people that
That's
that
it.
we're people and to help people understand.
Well, he
who are
works for
willing
the
to
MTA,
understand.
and he's like a subway conductor.
Yeah.
So I wasn't out at work. So
Oh,
I don't know
living
how I
two
even
lives,
persuaded
that's
him.
miserable. I know. I've done
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's miserable.
I know what that's like.
It's very,
Yes.
very confusing.
And yet we still want
Who
to
am I
try
now?
to make the world a slightly better place when
But
we
we
leave
are.
it than
We just did.
Yeah, we just did.
Exactly
Yeah.
the one we came in.
And they'll see this like 100 years from now. These things go on YouTube. They become part of trans history.
Mm-hmm.
So
They do.
Quentin Crisp has been dead for, what, 10 years? So whatever. We have him on film, and he's on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very easy to find with just my name on the internet. My phone number can be found like that. I'm
Oh.
really so.
And you find his dead name too, which is sad.
It's okay. Whatever. You know.
They won't know who it is.
They probably won't know because the picture looks so different now.
Although there are pictures,
They'll think he
there
had
are
a
pictures
sister.
of you. There are pictures of you pre-transition where you look like a male cross-dresser.
Yes, I was. I at one point
There's one
was
picture.
being taken for a trans woman.
Yeah.
Did
there's
you,
one
And
picture
in bathrooms and everything.
There's one picture
that
in
was
particular.
a man.
Yeah.
There's one picture in particular of you that comes up early when you search for the name Anthony Arrien.
Yeah.
It comes up of you, pre-being you. You've got these earrings and your glasses, and you just look like Tootsie.
Looked like Tootsie. It was
Look at
probably me doing the Future of Community Media New York thing.
Mhm.
Well, Leslie Feinberg in Transgender Warriors writes that all her friends when she was young told her, you have to film up if you're going to get a job. She was desperate. She borrowed a wig from a girlfriend, a dress. She was on the bus. Everyone was saying, that's a man, that's a man, that's a man. It was a genetic woman. Next day she went back to the same place dressed in her usual clothes. Yes, sir, right this way, sir.
There you go.
It's funny how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. Life is interesting.
Thank you, dear. I got it.
Anyway. Oh, is that mine? Oh,
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you so much.
Help me put it on you.
No, I'm,
You gotta be here a while.
well, until midnight at least.
Oh.
Putting our shows on, which, as I've said, do become part of the historical record. All your shows are in the National LGBT Archives, and you can access them. Oh, you know this,
Yeah, you told me.
but have you done it?
I haven't done it yet, but I will.
You can access them by punching in, you know. So you should.
You are the best.
Mwah,
Ooh.
mwah, mwah. We're made up.
Oh yeah, don't mess up the makeup.
Yeah,
I get that a
really.
lot.
Yeah, you've gotten that from me before.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the meeting day before you did the shooting last week.
Right.
No kissing until after this.
Well, I'm going to walk you downstairs so I can get a
You have
cigarette.
a cigarette.
Okay. Is anybody speaking? Oh, yeah, good. There's our proceed.
You can turn your cell phone back on.
That's okay. I probably won't.
might not necessarily need that there, as you saw. Then now your logo could be different. So it's a new day, right?
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, okay. No, there's no flashing. Now you could have it.
You see how it.
Oh, so you
Hey, Ginger. Yes. Is there anything performance acting? You and Gloria Andre in the background, because the music was more loud.
Say that again.
Now I was just watching this clip.
I'm sexually harassed.
I'm not sure if you and Gloria was in the background.
You can't hear, can you?
No.
hear?
People ask me that on the street all the time. Hey, you want to do something?
Oh, God.
I guess this was after the show.